Charlie, you were born on the first day of 1924. You have seen a century of history. And I wonder, do you ever stop?
Not only that, I lived in the aftermath of a previous century of history. In fact, you could argue that about 90% of the progress of man has happened in civilization, has occurred in the last 2 centuries. And that I lived in the immediate aftermath of one. And it was a very important cemetery, that cemetery that ended when I was born. Because in that century, we figured out so very, very much that was quite important as a start. If you stop to think about the technical revolution, it happened in that century. That's when they opened all these coal mines and created all these steam engines and so on. And so it was just, and of course that's what brought the economic system up. So man had enough leisure, had enough time to think when he wasn't just getting enough food to eat. And so it was an amazing time to be born, and to be born in the place in that century where all the growth was going to occur.
The United States.
The heyday of the British Empire, which was probably the most important empire that ever existed on Earth, ended about the time I was born. The heyday. You look, you're a stamp collector. Pretty much the whole Earth was colored red or pink for the British Empire. It was a little stinky island in the North Sea, and that's what they created the most important civilization ever created. Now they borrowed heavily from the Greeks and the Romans and so forth to do it, but they did it nonetheless, and it was a very interesting thing. The idea that a system where 300 families owned half the land in England, and when the summer came in England, they went to London and ran the country as a matter of noblesse oblige. That enabled them to take the best of that 300 families and make them important parliamentarians. And that was their civilization. That was the way in which they took civilization, and their part of civilization, into total leadership of the technical revolution.